Alright, so the other day on YOLO, someone asked me to do a tutorial on how I make music. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into specific mixing details and stuff like that, more technical stuff on this rap beat I made the other day. And then I'm going to go over more general song structure and melodic structure on a longer, more fleshed out melodic project I have. So let's start with the rap beat. I'll play that real quick. Alright, so let's start off with the intro. So the intro is a little out of place, but I kind of like it because it has a very nice vibe to it. So the main thing I like to think about when I'm making a song is the chords, the melody, and background elements. So starting off with chords, I like to keep my intros with just staying on the one chord to save variation, the drop, to make it more interesting. Also adds a bit of tension. Because when it's staying on one chord, you keep expecting something to change. So when I have playing the chord, I just have a Reese playing the bass note, which is C. It's a C minor chord, I believe. So Reese is pretty simple. It's just detuned saw waves with a filter and distortion, but that's not really too important. So I also have background elements like pads playing the whole chord. So then I also have this ARP being filtered in. It's good to filter your elements in the intro so it doesn't have too much energy. And then of course there's the melody, which is just playing this little phrase over and over again. And it continues into the drop. So I just have some elements being filtered in. That's kind of my way of telling the listener that a drop's coming and that something's about to change. Also, I have all the elements cut out right before the drop and have a little snare hit. So the drop. The drop's pretty simple. I'm not really doing anything special here, except for one thing which I'll talk about. It's just a basic trap beat, basic trap drums, which consists of kind of a thumpy kick, thumpy slash clicky click kick, generic snare, and that just repeats, and then a little snare fill at the end of every bar. And of course there's trap hi-hats going on, switching to 16th notes on the on every third measure. Now the important part of this drop is actually the basses. For that I have an 808 and a piano playing, which actually a lot of people don't do. I don't know why. It adds a very nice atmosphere to the entire track. It's a very dark vibe. Without it would sound like just adds a ton of character to the entire track. Now, of course, I'm just playing a basic 808. Some distortion. And for progression, there isn't that much in the chords. It's just 1 to 2, back to 1, then goes an octave higher, then it goes to the 5, back to 2. So it really is just going 1 2 1 1 5 2 1. It's a very simple progression. It's just looping every 4 measures. Then I have the same melody from the intro playing, just with all its frequencies. I also have a choir, which was also playing in the intro, but filtered. Choirs are very good to add for trap beats because it's just this nice human element, and choirs are all around nice. I would use them in basically any type of music you're making. And of course, I have a simple ARP going, just a music box. ARPs are always nice to layer over drops because they add a nice movement and are just very good background elements. They can also like kind of add a feeling of progression to the song because there's a lot of movement going on there. And yeah, oh, okay. So the second part of the drop, it's always good to vary what's going on. So what I have going on here is I cut out the drums to kind of signal a transition in the drop for the first measure. And then I brought them back in and also added this very crunchy bass. Not only does this bass switch up the drop a little bit, as a little bit of variation, I also did it because when I finish this, I want to add in the second drop a little more of like a hybrid trap feel. It's a little more like dubstep basses, stuff like that. And I want to bring this bass in to kind of preview the second drop, but that's a little more complicated and doesn't really have too much of effect currently. Alright, so that's pretty much everything. I'm not going to get into mixing because it doesn't really matter, to be honest. I mean, it does matter, it's really important, but for beginner, I would not worry about mixing. Alright, so let's move on to the second project for song structure. Alright, I'll play this real quick. Alright, so this song does a couple interesting things. So first off, it's centered. I centered it all around the drops. It has kind of a bit of an unusual chord progression, I think. I haven't looked at this in a while. Okay. So chord-wise, it switches up a couple times. Intro, the chords are staying the same. So it's just going 1, 3, 2, 7, 1. Which is a pretty simple chord progression. Of course, with a ton of just weird inversions and stuff, because I do that when I'm making melodic stuff. So, the intro and melodic tracks can lead into a build-up, but for this, because it's a more tame drop, I decided to not have a build-up like in this second part, because hyping this drop up too much would kind of be a mistake, because it's actually not that powerful. I kind of want to have this kind of just chill drop that kind of also hits hard a little bit. So to do that, I just had very basic intro, not a lot of elements, brought in some chords here, and then just went straight into the drop. This is also a very short song, so you can also add like 4 to 8 bar chunks in between, like here or here or here. That'll stretch the song out more and add more content. You can have nice breaks there. I decided to have most of the song be drop oriented, so everything about the song is kind of leaning towards the drop. So I have this ARP playing here, which is kind of adding a bit of tension. It has a nice feeling of kind of like forward movement to it. And then that brings us to the build-up. So I don't really have any like chorus or break in here. Everything's just going straight to the build-up, which is kind of how I like my melodic songs, actually. It's kind of funny, because melodic songs usually tend to have more content in between the drops. I like to go straight to the drops, but with rap, I actually have a lot more melodic content in them than my actual melodic stuff, which is a little funny, but I digress. So basically, just the entire structure of this song is just, don't mind these markers, they actually aren't descriptive. So a tiny intro here, bit of a build-up, leads into this kind of chorus drop almost. It actually isn't really that much of a drop. Then little break here goes into this kind of sub break build-up type thingy that leads you into the next build-up. And then that build-up, of course, brings you to the second drop, where I just unfiltered all of the elements to make it hit harder. It's basically the same as this first drop, just no filters. So yeah, I'm planning on adding a outro here, but overall this is just basically finished song. I'm probably going to go add some changes, but this is a good example of just general melodic structure. So yeah.